All right, Florida State fans, let's hear what you have to say regarding Mike Norvell, the Stanford game, and the entire state of the program. Let's talk FSU football.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles on this live edition here on a Monday night. And we're going to have some fun. I'm going to allow everybody to kind of get their thoughts in the chat. Go ahead and join. Make your comments, make your thoughts known, whether it's about the Stanford game, whether it's about the opportunity for Florida State to rise back up. What do they have to do? Of course, the whole Mike Norvell discussion with his contract. Where does that stand? All of those things are on the table. Recruiting, I have some thoughts and unfortunately some not so great news to discuss on the recruiting front for the Florida State Seminoles. And at the end of the day, what needs to change at Florida State to get this thing rolling? Because it's Florida State. It shouldn't be that hard, but it seems like it is. Florida State has so many great records, so many great coaches, so many great players. Why is it like this? I just kind of want to hang that out there as an overall thought. So again, join the chat, make your comments known. If you've got something that you want to talk about, fire away. Also, before I forget, today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. It's where I get my tickets, and to be honest, it's really easy. Use Game Time. All right, here are my opening thoughts. This isn't really anything shocking, but with the way that Florida State is playing, is there any reason that they're a 17.5-point favorite against Stanford? It's on the West Coast. It's the infamous, as I like to call it, helmet game. You're going against a team that, quite frankly, nobody respects or really wants to play. They've got an interim head coach for the Cardinal, Frank Reich, former NFL quarterback. They're not very good, being kind, depleted roster, and you're coming off 3 consecutive losses to Virginia, Miami, and Pittsburgh. How motivated will the Florida State Seminoles be for this game? And should you, as a Florida State fan, expect this to be a game where they come out like gangbusters, come out flat, somewhere in between? Comment about that in the chat. That's probably the thing that I'm most interested in, but here's my take on it. I don't think Florida State's going to play very well early on. West Coast and all that. I don't even know what time the game is, but I don't think it matters. They could pick the time. I don't think it really does make a difference because I don't think this team is going to be completely bought in the rest of the year. As I like to say here on Locked On Seminoles, prove me wrong. They played pretty hard against Pittsburgh. I'm not saying they didn't. But to lose a third consecutive game by 1 score, at some point it's going to suck the life out of you. Injuries are mounting. I talked about that on the Monday edition of Locked On Seminoles. And when this goes up on Tuesday, and everybody that doesn't get a chance to be here live to listen to this, I mean, Deuce Robinson did not look like he was coming back anytime soon. I'm sure they're not going to talk about it during the press conferences this week, nor should they. You don't want to give the opponent anything. But losing him is a big part of it. Squirrel White, is he going to play? Is Randy Pittman a guarantee going to play? Is Micah Pettis going to play? Rodell Williams? Florida State's skill positions on offense right now are a bit of a mash unit. Makai's still healthy. Usman Chroma's healthy. By the way, he's playing really well. I put up a stat about him on the Locked On Seminoles X page a little bit ago. He's a beast after contact. He's one of the best running backs in college football. Statistically, after contact, I expect him to get the ball more. But let's talk about the defense for a second. I dumped all over them on Sunday, and Doc Staples, like he's a longtime Florida State fan, has his own pod. He broke down the film, and he was right. Linebackers are terrible in coverage. They were exposed in a lot of different ways. Run gap fits weren't as good as they should have been. Few coverages weren't where they needed to be. And you gave a quality football team hope. You allowed them to hang around on every drive to give them hope. Third downs, fourth downs, you couldn't get them off the field. They finished 8 of 17, I believe, on third and fourth downs, and 3 for 3 on the first drive, fourth downs to score. That's not how it's done, folks. That is not how it's done. So My concern is Florida State comes out apathetic. One way or the other, it's 7-3 at the end of the first quarter, and we've got a close game, especially if Deuce does not play. I mean, he's a weapon unto himself because you can't match up with 6'6", 223 pounds. Stanford doesn't have that guy. Heck, I don't know if anybody does. You take him out of the lineup, the defense could be very aggressive against the run, and they're a solid run defense. I looked it up. Florida State and Stanford, believe it or not, are next to each other in run defense. And Stanford's played some weaker opponents. I get it. But so is Florida State. I think there's a chance that Florida State is going to have a few runs get stuffed that they may not have expected. Stanford plays hard. Not the most overly talented team. All right, I'll give you that. But if this game is 7-3 at the end of the first quarter with either Stanford or Florida State leading, would I be surprised? Nope. And if you get past that first quarter and it's a one-score game, again, you're handing hope to a team that shouldn't beat you. Final point to that, this is the kind of game that Mike Norvell has been terrible in. Stat of the day. In their last 11, Florida State is 1-10 in ACC games. The only win was against Cal last year. 1-10. And that one game in the 11 was the very first one, giving them the Cal game. It's the only team you beat in the ACC since the beginning of last season. I've just lost any faith. Like, I can go through every metric, use Pro Football Focus. I can provide you with every film breakdown and say Florida State's way better than Stanford. I'm not convinced they're winning the game. And again, for the record, they are a 17.5-point favorite. The last I saw earlier today on a Monday on FanDuel. 17.5. That's what I was told. If it's anything over 10 points, it puts it in perspective. You're the way more talented team. They're more than a 2-touchdown favorite, and I'm very concerned about the game. That is not where you want to be. If you've got thoughts on that you agree with me, disagree with me, or anything else, please comment here in the chat. But overall, here's the point. Florida State has to make a statement in this game to solidify one way or the other. They're just, I know this isn't a player problem, but they need to either fall off a cliff or dominate. They can't win 24-16 in kind of a good game and they play pretty good defense and just win. It can't be middle of the road. Florida State needs either Norvell to really step up or to cut bait. We're to that point. They're 3-3. I really don't want them to lose to Stanford, but I would almost take it at this point if you guaranteed me they'd fire Norvell. And here's the question of the day. Does Florida State do that? If they lose to Stanford, would the brass at FSU say, that's it, brother? Sorry, man. You got to go. Would it take that for Florida State to lose? Stanford's awful. I mean, they're bad. They're giving up over 30 points a game on average. And they played some patsies in there too. They are terrible on defense. Run defense, okay, but like you can throw the ball on them. And unfortunately for Florida State, with Deuce being out, you're not going to be able to take advantage of that as much. But what's the deal? Will Florida State get rid of Norvell if that happens? What's your take? And why? If they did not fire him, would there be any other reason, other than the buyout is massive? I can't think of one. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, if you've got a take on that, fire away in the chat. I'll get into it here in just a minute. Final point before I go to first break, and then I'll just go right into the chat. I'm curious about Tommy Castellanos' health. If you remember back, I think the second drive, somebody correct me in the chat if I'm incorrect here. He took that shot down near the goal line. It happens. It's football. But he got up kind of limping. And for the majority of the rest of the snaps, he didn't run as much. And he still played well, don't get me wrong. But if Tommy is not healthy, I can just tell you as somebody who covered UCF when Gus was there, that offense is not anywhere near as potent. Quarterback buck sweep, quarterback draw, just scrambling, quarterback lead, quarterback counter. Taking those off the board makes Stanford's job a lot easier. So if he's not running around in the first quarter, I assume he'll start. I don't know why he wouldn't. But if he's just banged up and they're trying to protect him, that's a hard thing to swallow because that's a lot of yards. He's 40, 50 rushing yards a game conservatively. And against Stanford, it wouldn't shock me if he got 100. If Tommy's banged up, I'm worried about Florida State really being consistent on offense, especially in third downs when you don't have to account for the quarterback in an RPO-based offense. It's concerning. So we'll talk about that more here in just a second, but let's talk about Mike Norvell's contract next. I think they need to get rid of him no matter what at the end of this year. What's your take? We're going to talk about that next here on Locked on Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Wayfair. The holidays are going to be here before you know it, which is exciting, but getting your home ready, ready for the guests that are coming over, family, having all those celebrations that you love at the Christmas holiday season, it's not as easy as you might think because you're thinking maybe we need a refresh for the bedroom, the guest room, pillows, whatever it may be. Wayfair has everything you need to get your home ready for the holidays. Christmas trees, wreaths, bedding, cookware, anything you can imagine, you can get it with Wayfair. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with huge selections for every style and budget. And with free and easy delivery, even for the big stuff, you can get everything you need without all the extra fees. If you need a new table, if it's cloths, if it's pillows, you can get them delivered right to your house with Wayfair. Get organized and refreshed at wayfair.com. That's wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style and every home. We are also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet $3 or bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, $5 down. And if you hit that bet, you'll get $300 to use across the FanDuel app. If you want to bet on Patrick Mahomes winning MVP, if you want to talk about the Ravens going to the Super Bowl, whatever it is you want to do, you can do it right there on FanDuel. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and to get started. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that's Mike Norvell. If they lose to Stanford, I will be the first one on the live show after the game, all in. Come hell, come high water, they got to fire Mike Norvell. Got to happen. If they do not, it'll be a lot of that ranting. No, I know the money situation, but you got to figure it out. You're Florida State University. Just going to throw that out there. If he wins and they finish 7-5, where are Florida State fans on? Answer this question in the chat. At 7-5, with no major win, where would you be? That would be my other question. Like if they don't win any other big games this year, they win 4 more games, but you beat NC State or something, whatever. Would you be okay with it? Would you want him back? Show of hands. How many would really want Norvell back? All right, I'm going to dive into the chat, and I'll pull up some of these, but there are a lot of takes, I'm sure, that are going to be very similar to mine, so we'll get going here. Let's see here. Mark, 3822. If FSU loses to Stanford, you know where to send the crow. Feathers really stink, so let's see a W. I mean, I don't know if they're going to lose or not. I'm just saying if they did, I'm going to pick Florida State to win, but close. I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I would pick to take the points in Stanford. I don't think Florida State's going to come out firing. That's my concern. Honestly, is Mike any better than the Gators coach with that shiny Sun Belt? Not really. I don't think they're the same coach. He might be better than Napier, but probably not a whole lot. Norvell is on borrowed time, according to Eric Morse, 85. You might be right. You might be right. Maybe Sonny Peach, the only thing not losing with Mike Norvell is his bank account. Post of the day. Yeah, he's, for those that don't know, it's 50 plus million. It's a lot of cash, man. It's a lot of cash. Leon, FSU needs to fire Norvell. It's costing them more money than his buyout. Florida State's brand is in the bottom tank. Thanks to his record, Florida State needs to spend big money on an offensive line plus defensive line in the portal. You're not wrong. Mimi, Florida State doesn't have Penn State's money. That is also true. Penn State's got some deep pockets, and for the record, the James Franklin contract is very similar to the one Norvell has as far as what's to buy out. Man, I really wanted Mike to be another Bowden, but sadly it's not so. I've come to the conclusion that Florida State needs to move on from him. He is bringing down the brand. We can't afford that. That is from Richard Brookins. Richard, if I remember right, that's not the first time you've said that. And I agreed last time and this time. Eric Morse, will we win a game? Will we win against Stanford does it even matter? That's kind of sad. I'm not sure. If they lose, it matters. If they lose to Stanford, that could be it for Mike, in my opinion. Richard Brookins, hey, a win is a win, and we need all we can get. That is also very true. From Eric Morse, Brian, is Norvell's problem getting the team ready to play or in-game and halftime adjustments? Something has to give. Well, here's the thing. Like, they've lost the last 3 games, but they played hard. Last year, I think it was more who he brought in. Like, he didn't manage the portal well. He didn't manage the players, and it cost him. The locker room issues, who was making the money, it ended up being a disaster. So that was more the management side. So hiring his staff and getting recruiting right has probably been the biggest problems. He got a much better staff this year. There's no doubt. Both coordinators are better, line coaches, etc. But he's now suffering from recruiting demons from 3, 4, and 5 years ago. Look at Florida State's roster. When you see senior and fifth-year senior on the depth chart, how many of those guys are really players he recruited and how many are from the portal? How much leadership do they have? The vast majority of guys that are here that are senior, fifth-year seniors that play are portal guys. So that's not good. Eric, I think everyone wants Mike to be the next Bowden. They are searching anyone to be the next Bowden. Amen to that. Greg, how many years will it take for Florida State to recover from the CEO Mike debacle? It has taken Cristobal 4 years to change the culture at Miami. 3 to 4. I mean, you could get lucky in something to break in 2 years if you had the right quarterback. But 3 is kind of the magic number historically. In the portal era, it just depends on who comes and goes. It's more volatile. But until somebody takes over a job and really shows me you can do it in 2 years, I'm going to say 3 is kind of the bottom end. Richard, look at Mike Elko and Texas A&M. Yeah, you get the right guy there, you can start turning things around. He got rid of some guys. They're probably not as talented as they were last year, yet they're better. What's that tell you about the culture for the Aggies? Really good point. Eric Morris, I remember when the Noles were basically the standard in college football, at least an upper echelon group. Yeah, they were top 10 every year. They finished in the top 4, 14 years in a row. It's just insane. Just insane. 2-3 years is possible. Like 27 would be the earliest they could start rolling, but it'd probably be 28 or 29. And that's if you got rid of Norvell, like even before the end of the season and hired the perfect guy. That's an optimum situation. That's just reality because you need somebody that is an elite recruiter to come into the program. Mimi, what happened between beating Bama and now? That's something I've been trying to figure out here. I'm not saying I've got the perfect answer, but man, that's a great question. I still don't have the whole picture of it. Injuries are part, but they've gotten worse. There's no way. They've just gotten worse. Richard, people hurt and coaches unprepared. Remember, they had months and months to prepare for Bama. That's true. They outcoached Bama. They did. You got to give the staff credit for that one. Richard, they don't adjust well at all. In game, no. The one thing I'll complain about Tony, once he has his mindset on something, that's what he's going to run. Like they didn't adjust to the linebackers getting smoked in the pit game. They really didn't. Mimi, can Florida State find $55 million to get rid of Mike and afford to pay another coach? That's the question. You just said it. I don't know if that's the answer or not, but that's kind of where they need to be. I'm going to kind of let you stew on that one for a second. I'm going to get my other break out of the way here real quick. Then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about that a little more because that's really the big deal at the end of the day. If you can't get rid of Mike and things go south the rest of the season, what are we doing? That is next here on Locked on Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. College football is back. It's all kinds of fun with all the tailgates, rivalries, and all the energy in the stands. There's nothing quite like college football. But let's be real, getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, and prices jumping at you at the checkout. That's why I use Game Time, and you should too. It's the app that makes it a lot easier for you right from your fingertips on your phone or your tablet. Pull up the app, click on a team, look at a game, pick the seat you want. You can get your seat view right there on your phone or your tablet. Game Time makes it really, really easy to do. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Let's get back into the chat and have some more fun with this. But again, do they have the money to get rid of Norvell and get a coach they'd really want with all the staff? Remember, you got to buy out the assistants and Mike and go hire new assistants, back office staff. It is an undertaking. There is no negotiating the like they're getting that money. It's ugly. The coaches always win in this. That's just how it works. You got to pay them to leave, which is weird, but that's how this works. So it is what it is. Let's see here. Eric. It does amaze me how much good Norvell lost in the last 2 years. Goodwill. Undefeated and on the brink of the playoff. Got lawmakers suing, getting involved to where Florida State is now. It is one of the wildest turnarounds. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. It really is. Let's see here. And I think they can make it work with the money, but they don't want to. Richard made a good point there too. Florida State is a business as an athletic department. What I'm about to say, I'm not saying it's fun or friendly, but the biggest way you can impact Norvell, let's say they lose to Stanford this weekend. I have no idea. Let's just say they did. They got to boycott home games. Y'all got to boycott home games and everything else Florida State donation. Be very loud. And I mean very loud. If somebody from the Florida State University Department of Development calls you, or somebody tells you, hey, let's go to, it's got to be no. There have to be empty seats in Doak. And I hate saying that, but it's the only, if the coffers are full, they're not likely to fire him. It's the ugly truth. Let's see here. And Eric, remember when Florida State was the standard? That's from Richard Brookins. Absolutely. Absolutely. Richard, why do you think they don't want to? Because of money. That's from Mimi. Look, Florida State's a business. It's a business. And as it relates to the question I asked earlier, at 7-5, should he be fired? Freeman Outpost says, yeah, he's got to go. 7-5, he has to go. Richard Brookings, because they could use the money for other things, extra improvements and all. Yeah, that's true. But you're not going anywhere with him as the head coach is my feeling. That's just where I'm at. Eric, Mike Norvell personally seems like a good guy. I agree. And would like, but is he someone you can put your fear of God in someone? I don't know. I don't think anybody fears him. Do we really think he makes great in-game adjustments? They scheme it up pretty good with some of their offensive plays here and there. But when a team finds a niche against them, how well do they really adjust? I'm not sure that I feel so great about that. Let's see here. Clark Griswold. Whoa, what a great show that was. Not by you, but why do you think Tommy is criticized so much? I get he's always the quarterback's fault, but he is exactly what he has been and likely better. Did we expect him to be Jordan? Okay, let's look at it this way. I think a lot of Florida State fans, especially older ones, want to see a very accurate pocket quarterback because that's what they remember from like when I was growing up. Tommy is not that. Secondarily, he doesn't fit the part in terms of his stature. He's a 5'10" quarterback. He's had a pretty good year, to be honest with you, but he doesn't fit the overall standard. And even though they're completely banged up on offense, they scored 31 last week and still lost. Wasn't on the offense. It was on the defense. They didn't get it done. Let's see here. Eric Boris, Norvell's buyout is somewhere in the $58 million range. That's a lot of dough, man. That's a lot of dough. Kramer, what were FSU fans expecting this year? I heard all offseason 6-6 would be a good year. After that Bama game, expectations changed to 12-0. Stay humble. There's some truth in that. That did change the thing. Maybe that is true. Let's see. Leon, next year you can count losses to Miami, Notre Dame, Clemson, probably. And Bama, it's going to kill them, so it's not going to get better next year. Fire him or going to take 5 years to get back into the national prominence. You're probably right. Yeah, next year's schedule, you got Notre Dame at home, Miami on the road, Bama on the road, Clemson at home. That's a pretty rough start to that schedule. Maybe schools need to stop giving these 8 to 10 year contracts, 2 to 3 at best. Just for the record, the reason they give more than that is to secure the idea for recruits that they're going to be there. I think that's still going to change, though. I agree. Let's see. JLO5855, is Gus Malzahn earning his paycheck? They're doing pretty well, but I wouldn't say it's great. Like, they still have some things they need to do, but I'm not sure Gus can do everything that's necessary because the offensive line is so average in some capacity, especially when Pettis has been out. He's exceeded expectations, but he missed the game this past weekend, and he didn't play about 2/3 of the game against the Canes. That's a problem. When Pettis is not in the lineup, that's a really good blocker they don't have. So it's tough. Eric, the problem is college football. These college coaches get rewarded for being bad. You're not wrong. What motivation does Norvell have to really try or care when he's got $58 million coming in his buyout? Excuse me. I think there's another way to look at this. I think he's prideful. I don't think Norvell likes this. I just don't think he knows how to fix it. Remember the ACC Media Day press conference where he was like practically yelling and stuff? Like he was super hyper. Like he takes it personally. I just don't think he's a good enough coach to fix it. Just my opinion. David Kreitzer. Jace Franklin's recent recruiting classes, 23. 124. I don't know what that is. I'm not sure what this means. Because he was never the number one recruiting class. I don't know what you're talking about. Franklin hasn't had a top 5 class, so I'm not sure where you're getting your rankings. Jeff Colts. If Florida State loses to Clemson, that's the rest of your post kind of went off there. Well, I'll just make this last comment. Florida State has to change one thing, and that's making the boosters believe they're going to get return on investment. That's really the only thing that's left. The facilities are great. From all the renderings, I could tell just before they even opened up for the first game against Bama, stadium looked great. Turf, the weight room, all that. They've got all that stuff. They're in a great location. They just got to raise capital to get rid of Norvell and get out of the ACC. It's that simple in terms of like the topics. Not simple to do. I'm very clear about that. But if they don't do those things, they have no chance. You're not winning at the Florida State level with what they have right now. Prove me wrong. But again, here's the stat of the day. In your last 11 Atlantic Coast Conference games, you're 1-10 with your one win being against Cal. When they screwed up both times last year in the red zone late in the game, you should have won that game. You should not have won an FBS game last year. Charleston Southern should have been your only win. It's amazing. Jawayne, I never thought Norvell was the guy. I thought he only maintained what Fuente did at Memphis. He is always up and down with his record. He never shows upward trajectory. No argument there. I absolutely agree. JLO 5855. The status quo is killing recruiting, period. That is a fact. Matter of fact, that's what we're going to close on. Look, there's no better comment to end this show on than that one. Florida State's recruiting has been pretty solid. But what they've shown on the field, and I forgot to mention this earlier, is hurting recruiting. Jay Timmons, Lawrence Timmons' son, a great Florida State player under Bowden. He played in the NFL for the Steelers. His son lives in the Pittsburgh area. He's visiting Ohio State. Where would you rather play right now if you take the Seminole glasses off? Ohio State or Florida State? It's pretty easy to see why you would consider Ohio State. If you don't change the coach, there's probably going to be more of that. And that's where I conclude tonight's live show. Thank you for everybody that showed up. I truly appreciate it. It's going to be a wild week. I'm going to start breaking down some information about Stanford. They've got a little better defense than I thought, but it's still not great, especially against the pass. We're going to break that down all throughout the week and then have a prediction on Friday. And then I'll have a live show again after the game, win or lose, against Stanford. Thank you to everybody for showing up. We will see you again soon on Locked On Seminoles.